Hello. Where did you
Look
guys
who's
come
here! Welcome to the DNA show. Back on the balcony with D and A and another D. Right here we have Dario from the Baby Animals. How you doing, Dario?
from? I'm well. How are you doing, Ash? Are you good? A, and how are you, D?
Living the dream.
Great. It's nice and sunny out here today.
It is.
Whoop.
I'm good. Damo?
Lovely to see you again,
See you
John.
too.
As you can see, we're not really in our natural habitat because there's sunlight or daylight, but
We're going to burn.
we're all going to burn. So we're going to have to make this quick as Dario has an appointment at the solarium after this.
What we're going to do, we're going to talk with Dario today about what it's like to have once been one of the busiest musicians in the country, going from there to here, which is pretty much no plane. And how do we do, and you know, along with every other muso in the world or on the bloody planet, how do we deal with that kind of stuff? So we're going to talk about all that kind of thing. We're going to talk about what Daz is up to now, what he's been doing, you know, how awesome his time is with the Big Music Bandits and all that kind of stuff.
So Dario, what I'd like to know, and our thousands of viewers would like to know, how does a good-looking young bass player get a start as a session muso or hired gun? You're very well known for being one of the best-looking bass players in Australia.
Jesus.
In the hired gun department and the non-hired gun, how do you get a start? How does this happen for any young bass players? What would you, what sort of roads do they need to walk down? What sort of people do they need to pay, or how do they get into the biz?
Well, I guess for me, I can only speak really for me, and what I did was, firstly, I was really into my instrument, which that's number one qualification. I think you've got to really be passionate about what instrument you play, firstly. Secondly, I think what is really important is being able to get along with people and go and check bands out. That's what I used to do, and meet people and be like, just sharing ideas, just basically learning from other people, asking them questions. And then just being around those people and around people that were working, eventually you might get asked to play, and it just sort of snowballed from there, really.
And so I guess it's safe to say, from what you're saying as well, you can have all the chops in the world and be super cool looking, but to become someone that plays in a lot of different bands for a lot of different people, it's about your people skills.
Absolutely,
really.
yeah.
And just being a good person.
Well, making sure that having people skills also includes, having equipment that works, showing up on time, dressing for the occasion, taking every gig seriously. Like, it doesn't matter if the gig is in front of 1,000 people or 100 people. If someone asks me if I'm free and I can do a job, and I accept it, I make sure I learn it the best I can. I'll do as much work as I can to make that, to make it a good gig, because no one wants to go up on stage with a band not knowing what you're making mistakes. And so I try to make sure that any gig I do, doesn't matter how big it is, I put the effort in and learn my stuff.
Right. And as far as
when you do that, then the word gets around. Oh, it's pretty cool. He learned it, because musicians can be lazy, and so it's like, we'll just get up there, and that
Winging
it doesn't really cut it. If you want to be a session guy, you've got to really know your stuff and perform it well, and be on time and do all that stuff as well.
to everything, whereas there's a lot of players that are specifically only into one style. Does that limit how much work you're going to get? If you're just a hard rock player, then
I mean, I start. My passion is rock, really. That's what rock. Yeah, that's what I'm really into. But you kind of limiting yourself if that's all you do. Like, I have respect, and I try and cover as many genres as I can. And when I was younger, I used to just throw myself in and not be scared. I tackled everything head on and thought, I can do this. So I had a belief in myself and pushed myself in other areas which I wasn't comfortable in. And nowadays, I feel like I can cover most genres. If the call comes in, it's country or or whatever it is, funk or
Bit of
R&B,
Viking metal from time
or
to time.
you know, yeah.
And what about gear, Dario? I know that you were a Fender endorsee for a while, and now you're all over the shop.
Well, I still have a good relationship with Fender. My go-to instrument is a Fender Jazz.
Right.
And I've just recently, a few years ago, Fender had one, and they said, "Look, this looks like you because it's black, you know, and we're sort of black." And they said, "This is you." And my go-to bass now is I've got an American Deluxe, which is active, so it's passive and active, so I can have the best of that old kind of jazzy sound with. If I want to make it active and make it a bit more modern, I can. I just flick a switch, and it gives it a bit more zing and a bit more kind of modern sound. Yeah, so that's my go-to instrument, and the jazzes, I must say, are my favourite.
Okay. A lot of people know
The R-bass.
the DNA show is quite famous for having quite a lot of female fans, and we get a lot of letters from you guys about the bass player from the Baby Animals. And strangely enough, that's
you?
Dario.
Regular.
Yeah, I mean, a scary amount of emails about the bass player from the Baby Animals. So I'd love to know how you got into the Baby Animals. So how did that all come about?
With the Baby Animals, well, I'm not the original bass player for Baby Animals. They had a fantastic bass player who was in the band originally called Eddie Parisi, who's just, you know, an absolute whiz, and total respect for Eddie. He's a great guy and a great musician. So when they reformed, he was in Perth, so they reformed, and so yeah, Susie came back from the States and bought a house in Coogee and put the band back together. And I just filled in. I was actually playing with Jimmy Barnes at the time, and they needed a bass player to do one gig up in Caloundra, and so they just booked me for one gig. So I did the gig, and then after I did that one gig, Susie said, "I want you in the band." So that's how that kind of came about.
And you can see why.
It happens to people every day.
Well, the thing is, right? Like I've always been a Baby Animals fan. We had one rehearsal, and we played in front of 3,000 or 4,000 people. Whatever. It was a Caloundra Music Festival. Right? It was a big gig, and I had one rehearsal, and I went on stage, and I learned. And I love their music anyway. It suits. I feel like it suits my playing down to a T. That's kind of where I come from. So, and I guess they saw that, and they just said, "Well, you know, we want you to play it." And so that's how that came about. And that was about maybe about 8 years ago. So,
Let's have a quick chat about COVID. How many gigs a week were you doing before the middle of March?
you know, I was on the road with the Baby Animals, which is Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Generally, it was a red hot summer tour. So
Yes.
we were doing that. I had a regular Thursday night gig in the city, and then I'd get some corporate work. I'd have some studio stuff. So as far as gigs, I'd probably do maybe 3, 4, 5 gigs a week. That's what I was doing with sessions and recordings. I've got a studio at home, and so I still do sessions at home now. But at that time, I do the odd one here or there, maybe one every 2 weeks or so.
Mm-hmm.
But then when COVID hit, it was just everything just completely shut down. All the gigs started falling over one by one, and we found ourselves I found myself at home thinking, well, initially I thought, well, the rest is going to do me good because you get a bit worn out traveling and getting up early to
See your
catch
family, spend time with your family.
Yeah, doing all that was just it was a little bit of a blessing actually at first. And then, I concentrated more on studio stuff. I was writing a bit with a few different people because we thought, well, we can't go out live. Let's just record and write music. So, and I have a few clients that come in and record their songs in my studio, and that's still going now. And they used to come a day each a week. So that was a couple of days, but no gigs at all. So I was just at home in my studio or in the house. And so, yeah, and that's how it was. And after 3 months of that, it was like I kind of had enough and thought maybe I really need to get out and work again. And so there's a few gigs coming in. I'm playing a little bit this weekend, but it went from full on flying here, flying interstate, flying home, doing a gig, doing a late gig, finishing at 1:30, getting up at 7 to catch a flight to go to Adelaide, it was full on. So from that to basically zero. So basically zero traveling and not really being out in front of people playing.
Well, as far as you know, a lot of humans are like routine. Your routine is, like you said, is going out and playing. That's what you do. It's part of your job. It's part of your life. It's your passion. Did you find yourself in any spots through, you know, a lot of people suffer from anxiety and depression, and did you find yourself falling into that slump when your routine gets taken away from you? I mean,
well, firstly, my routine as a musician is not like a routine as a guy who has a 9-to-5 job. Like, my routine is working at nights, but finishing at 11, finishing at 1. So it's not really, the routine is just playing, really. So it's not like hours are all over the place. So that's the first thing. I mean, when you say routine, I think you mean just working? Like,
I just mean, yeah. I mean, everyone's got different routines. Some people have got a 9-to-5. Like
Yeah.
you said, some people work in bars at night time, and your thing is out there. But so your routine, basically what you do, has been taken away. So, you know, and people were losing their minds going,
yeah.
I don't know what I'm meant to do with myself.
Yeah.
The first couple of weeks is great because you relax.
Well, it was more than the first couple of weeks. About a month or maybe 6 weeks that I was like, okay, cool. But then, you know, it's hard to explain, but I sort of didn't really feel like I wanted to go out and play anymore. I'm not sure if you call that depression, but it was. You know, then there were thoughts of, maybe I should think about doing something else. I did have those thoughts. Whether they were serious or not, I'm not really sure. Whether, you know, I just had those thoughts and they never ever came into my mind ever before. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, should I be doing something else in my life?
And I'm sure it's a sentiment shared by people and musicians, you know, globally. You know, the artists that do this for a living. When your livelihood's taken away, I guess that's one major problem. And some people don't come out the other side. And you know, you could, or the world could lose a talent for these exact reasons.
Yeah.
So you could have taken the step in and decided you didn't feel like playing live again. But I guess the point I'm trying to illustrate is, you know, this whole COVID thing has knocked our thought process in the bin, because here's something that you absolutely adore doing. You've made a life out of it, a living out of it, and it's, you know, it's carried your family through. And here you are questioning your faith to music, so to speak. Session musos are often known as gypsies because you're sole traders. You're your own business card, your own product. It's fine to say, you know, if you want to get into being and doing session work, this is what you have to do. You have to love you have to be right into your instrument, your music, and all that sort of stuff. But I think one thing that people don't think about, you've got to be quite good with budgeting yourself and knowing that you might not have. And it's for any contractor, whether you're a makeup artist, a sound technician, or a session person, you need to be able to go, okay, I might not have a gig for 6
See, that's
weeks.
the thing. That's the thing with being a session musician, like that. And when Damo asked me before how many gigs do you do, like, I used to often do a gig with the Baby Animals and then go and play at some club afterwards, like to have 2 gigs a night, because if I could make a gig, like if I had an earlier gig and then could make a later gig, I would always say yes. If it was possible to do, I would always say yes. And the reason I did that was because the following week, I don't really know what I'm doing. Whether I'm for the following month, I might not have much work. So when the work came in, I used to really bust my ass to do it if it was possible. I enjoyed it. It was hard, but I enjoyed it. So, and when you are a sole trader, it's not like you know what you're going to do. It's not planned out. So things change all the time. So you've got to be prepared for slower times. So that's when you budget and make sure if you can make a little bit extra this week, it's possible. It might be hard, but you just do it because that's what you do. That's what session guys do. Well, that's what I did anyway.
You know, if you want to get into this game, you know, get yourself a job in a cafe or something to keep your money coming in. and try and find as much work as you can.
Sure.
Or, you know, some people say, I just wanted to make myself available, so I stopped working in McDonald's and I just made myself available to do gigs. That's not really realistic, is it? You know, at the start when you start off.
Not really. I mean, I started being in an original band in the 80s. Well, firstly I was in a covers band, and then I had to give away my job because we were travelling, and when we finished travelling we'd come back, and then we weren't working, so we'd just work around town. So then I did get a job. So I was always in and out of jobs in the very early stages. I had to, because I wasn't known, and I hadn't been in the industry for a long time. But now that I have been in the industry, I mean, I know a lot of people, and if there's work out there, you know, if you just put yourself out there, I know that I will get asked to do things. So, but until you get to that point, you have to have I mean, you don't have to, but for me, it was important to have something to fall back on, just in case that work didn't come through. So it was hard. I went between jobs just to support the passion that I had, and that was playing music. You know?
Sure.
And then eventually it became my job, and now I can rely on it.
And as far as for the youth looking for work in this, you're your own business card, so you've got to go out and sell yourself too, don't you? And you know, sorry, this is meant to be a question, not a statement. You know, do you need to go and do you need to learn how to speak English before you ask Dario a question? Oh, let's do it in Italian.
Yes.
I guess what I was trying to ask is, for the younger viewers who want to get into this business, you know, do they need to be hungry? Do they need to go out and chase the work? Or do they just simply go out to gigs and talk to people and make themselves known that they're a bass player? Or
Sure. Look, for me, it was, I'm not a hard seller kind of a guy. You know, I don't like to get into people's faces, because I think when you're selling yourself, some people are really good and natural at it, right? And some people may not be so good, and they can be a little bit pushy. So it's important to find out, I think, where, like, you know, how you can present yourself without being too full on, because people generally will back away if you're going to be pretty full on with it. So my way was a bit more gentle, and just being around and just, hey, having a chat, rather than trying to sell. I have to sell myself. You know, that kind of spoke for itself a little bit later on when I started playing. You know, I was just generally a good guy that people would like to hang around with, I guess. You know.
Yeah.
So that wasn't really my thing. Like, you got to, you know, that sort of wasn't my angle. Where, pushing myself that hard. I didn't really do that. It might work for some people. I don't know, but for me it didn't.
You know,
so I think
oversell it.
Yeah, I reckon. And I have seen kids, you know, like, and sometimes. You know, up and coming guys or new people, it can be a little bit off-putting for people if it's a bit too full on. That's what I think.
Sure, no, it makes sense, especially aloof or cockiness.
Well, yeah, you've got to be humble.
Yeah,
and you've got to be able to just give, just give a bit without getting the reward straight away, because it'll come back. It really will. So you know, just do it for the enjoyment and you know, be cool about it and not be too hard-assed about the money and whatever. Like, that's never really been my way.
And what about a little roundup for 2021? So what are we seeing in 2021 for you? Is there anything you can, any scoops you can give to our audience on any big shows coming up that haven't been announced?
Any artists who've been recording, all those recording sessions you were talking about? Anything we should know, or the DNA fans out there?
Are you playing with Caligula in May? Oh, sorry, you can't
Oh.
about that.
Well, what am I doing? When are you airing this? Well, I'm doing a residency on Thursday nights at the Hard Rock Cafe at Darling Harbour with the band I put together. That sort of just came in the last couple of weeks. We're only doing 4 gigs there on Thursday nights. Mm-hmm. And then next year I've been asked to go to New Zealand with the Angels in January.
Sweet.
Are you going to play with them? Or are you just going?
I'm playing with them.
Oh.
I have played with
really?
them before, yeah.
Okay.
And so that's late January. There may be a chance we may have to isolate, but I'm not really sure. They're sort of working that out.
So does this mean you're playing with the Angels now?
I'm just doing that tour.
Right. And that's with Dave Gleason?
Yeah, because Sam Brewster, John Brewster's son, his wife's expecting a baby And John said, because when Sam was born, John was out on the road, and he said, "You're not doing the same thing, and you're staying home." So Sam didn't even have the choice.
Right.
And I've filled in for Sam before. He's a great bass player, and the Angels are a great bunch of guys. And they just said, "Look, we're going to New Zealand. Would you like to come?" I said, "Yeah, of course."
And
So-
some pretty iconic songs to play.
Oh
along
yeah.
with
Well, I
as
did a gig with them 2 weeks ago. They did a corporate gig up here in Manly, and we played bass, and it was just. I mean,
Yeah.
you just.
It's the Angels.
It's like it's in your DNA, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's the music. It's incredible.
See what he did there? DNA. Jesus.
The 3 albums you would take with you if you were locked down in COVID once again. Would they be?
That's
mate?
it.
You know how we talk. You know how we spoke about what questions we're going to ask you before we started the camera. This wasn't one of them.
No,
Let's
I
go.
can't.
You know, the best thing to do is just name 3 random ones. Don't think about it too much.
Okay. Well, firstly, a Biz Led Zeppelin record, and it'll probably be Houses of the Holy because that's my. Yeah, I really.
So that is your jam.
That's a beautiful. I love that record. Secondly, it'd have to be a Paul McCartney record, and I'd probably take Band on the Run, maybe.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait. He played a Rickenbacker on that, not a Beatle bass.
No. He played a Rickenbacker and a jazz bass on that. If you have a look at the Polaroids inside that record, he's actually playing a jazz.
You get that bass, nerds?
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
And the other one, I can't go past Deep Purple, so I'd have to, either Deep Purple, Machine Head, or Made in Japan. With Ian
Machine
Gillan.
Head for me, but yeah.
And there's all of the rest that I've left behind.
Oh no, you only allowed 3.
It's a hard pick. It's a
You only
hard
allowed
pick for
3.
sure.
Oh, another thing as well, Dario also gives a bit of his time to work with our big music bandits, our elite kids here.
You thought we were finished, didn't
Yeah. And
No.
so the kids here as well get to, every now and then, not too often, but every now and then, Dario comes in and works with the kids, and then more often than not, a couple of weeks later, we're playing at a show with you guys. So the kids get to not only work with you, but off stage, but pretty much next to the stage as well.
I forgot to mention that I'm doing some Pure Gold shows.
This weekend?
No, in December.
Hold on. Dario, have you got anything coming up in December?
Oh, yes, I have.
Wow, what is it,
I'm
Dario?
doing a couple of Pure Gold shows, 3 actually. 2 in Rudy Hill and 1 down in Wollongong. We're playing in Bribey Island in Queensland with the Pure Gold show as well, so it's
Nice.
4.
So what's the Pure Gold show? What are we talking about?
We're talking about Richard Clapton.
Nice. Choir boys on that
Choir
one?
boys, I think. Wendy Matthews is on
Nice.
there. I think Steve Kilby from the church.
Nice.
My Sex.
Great.
Not Steve Clisby.
No, different.
Different guy.
Kilby,
Okay, gotcha.
the church. Good band.
Great band.
Well, that's all we've got time for on the DNA show today. We'd like to thank Dario from the Baby Animals for hanging out with us today, telling us all about the current state of a top flight hired gun in the industry right now. That's how it is, folks. You've heard it.
See ya.
That's your sign off, Ash?
Bye.
That's what
That's
you
all
got.
I got. That's
All
all I
right.
got.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you on the next episode of the DNA show.
Thanks for having me.
You.